At the age of 9, I was possessed of a mania to ride a bicycle. My parents could not afford one, so I borrowed others. I was a bicycle thief. I spent 2 months in jail. I also stole $2.45 from my teacher, for which I served 18 months in St. Charles Reform School. I was paroled to work on Mr. Sleep's farm. He would beat, kick, curse, and abuse me. He would treat his wife the same. I stole his revolver from the pantry. I even took it to school, but I decided to put it back. In some manner, the gun was discharged. I watched as Mrs. Sleep fell to the floor. This is the scene of a brutal crime. Mrs. Manny Sleep and her 2 small children were discovered in an abandoned cistern on the Sleep farm, just 5 miles west of the town of Elgin. Missing since April 14th, 1913, Mrs. Sleep and her 2 children, Orville, 8 years old, and Sarah, 2 years old, were found in a keep in the pit under the kitchen. The woman had been shot 5 times in the neck and chest. The skulls of the children had been crushed. A note was found addressed to Manny Sleep. "Dear Papa," it read, "I have killed myself. Signed, Maud Sleep." This was the beginning of Herman Kopp's dramatic newspaper story in 1913. At the age of 13, he had been sentenced to state juvenile facility for stealing money from a school teacher. A year later, he was paroled into the custody of Emmanuel Sleep. Kopp fell in love with the farmer's 11-year-old daughter, Ida, but when he professed his love and kissed the child, he was reprimanded. The girl's mother threatened to have him sent back to the youth facility if he ever did that again. Herman adjusted to prison life. He was placed under the care of Chaplain Patrick and became a special runner for the chaplain's office. Later, he was transferred to the electrical department of the state institution. Warden Allen referred to Herman as a child full of animal spirits and full-blooded, but his mental state was lacking for someone his age. In the early part of 1916, Mother Mary Jones, an 81-year-old social worker, had visited the penitentiary. Mother Mary Jones was interested in the case of Herman Kopp. After she had visited the penitentiary to investigate the case, she left for Washington. It was rumored that Mother Jones had visited the penitentiary to secure Herman Kopp's parole to work on John D. Rockefeller's mining property in Colorado, in the place of Harold Snyder, the youth who was shot down by military men 3 years ago, replacing a life for a life. Herman was never paroled. But that's not the end for young Herman. At the age of 25 in 1924, he was transferred to the prison's honor farm. Herman had turned out to be a good baseball player, and he was needed on the prison's team. The team was actually so good that year they expected to win a conference championship. However, on August 18, 1924, Herman made new headlines. He and the baseball team's outstanding shortstop had escaped. They had stolen a car at the honor farm and abandoned the vehicle in Cook County. The headline summed it up perfectly. Baseball stars at honor farm steal home. So whatever became of Herman Kopp? Well, in 1944, his name will resurface. But prior to that, in 1939, the Sleep Farm residence burned to the ground. So in 1944, Herman was found living in Denver, Colorado, under the name of Albert Huth. Surprisingly, he had a wife and 6 children, all under the age of 13. Herman admitted his real identity, and he also signed a waiver of extradition as returned to Statesville on June 15, 1944. He still had a life sentence to complete. But after 20 years of freedom, it was a little difficult for him to adjust back to the prison life. 5 months later, he was a part of a gang who attempted a daring escape over the Statesville walls. But they got caught in crossfire of bullets fired by tower guards. This was the last time Herman cops made newspaper headlines. Maud Sleep was murdered and may have suffered at the hands of her husband, but the suffering doesn't stop there. Maud was accused of killing her children and herself, for which we know did not happen. Upon visiting her grave at Spring Cemetery in Aurora, Illinois, I found a bit of a surprise. Maud was buried away from her children, and her headstone was facing the opposite direction. This is something that is done when a person commits suicide, adding insult to injury. When I spoke to Maud at the cemetery, a lone leaf had fallen directly in front of me next to her grave. On April 13th, 2020, I was driving around and I realized that I was approaching the location of the Sleep farmhouse. So I stopped and did some evidence capturing. When I got home, I didn't realize it at first, but when I got home and I noticed that the date of the murder was actually April 14th, almost to the day I was at that location. Synchronicity at its best. Hey, it's Dean. I'm out here by the Sleep family residence. It's actually now a subdivision golf course. Pretty windy out here, so some of the noises you're hearing is the wind rustling through the telephone poles and wire, and the door slamming me into my own car here. So I'm going to try to do some investigation stuff here. Hi Maud. Maud Sleep, can you hear me? If you can, I hope you saw me coming in. This is Dean. If you could communicate with me, if there's any spirits here, appreciate you communicating with me. Still trying to determine if Herman killed you or you committed suicide. I have my theories. I'm going to go around and take some video. You, oops, got some papers in here. If you could communicate with me while I'm gone, that'd be good. Or talking to the microphone here. Nothing is coming up on the obelisk at all. I'm kind of in the area that Tim believed that the Sleep family house was. It wasn't that far off the street, but because of the new subdivision, it's kind of hard to figure out where the foundation was and the barn and stuff. And the that could be important because Marge was not Marge. Oh, it said fact. So the obelisk said fact at about a 30% black mark there. Maud, if you can hear me, I like that you said fact, because I was talking about the cistern where your body was found with your babies, and they thought it was suicide for whatever reason, murder-suicide, but we know better. Herman cops did it, and he was arrested, and you don't even know any of the story, Maud. It's just he did the deed, and he went to jail for it, and he got He escaped, and he actually went to Colorado, had a family, and then was later caught. And just at one point you just don't hear from him anymore, so he probably passed away. I'll bring that story back up. It's an interesting tale. Maybe I'll share that tomorrow, who knows. But Maud, if you can help me out and talk to me, kind of leave your voice on my message here. So basically we are ahead of time here. We have some interesting technology that has improved over the years, so you're probably not familiar with it, but go ahead and just talk to a level that we can hear you. So I'm going to take a walk around here. Oh, it's a video. I just stopped doing a video. Hilarious.